Okay, we'd like to focus this second hour on Skyline Drive. This is a little bit more complicated because we have more options for you, okay? Skyline's a little bit different animal, quite a bit different animal than Town East Boulevard. Traffic volumes are... Let me back up here. Okay, Skyline Drive. We have 4 options that we're going to be offering to you tonight, and I'll go into detail on each of these options, pros and cons. They basically are reconstructing what you see out there now. I'm going to, however, on all 4 options, listen to this kind of carefully because it's common to all 4 options. We are going to build that same screening wall, 8 foot tall, to separate the residential from the roadway. It'll basically go between the alley and the roadway, the whole length of the residential properties out there. That's common to all 4 options. So we're going to do that with all of them. The 4 options are reconstructed as its existing configuration. Basically, the roadway, 2 lanes each direction, very wide, 60-foot wide median. So it pushes the roadway one side all the way up against the industrial. On the other side, it pushes it close up against the residential homes. Basically, kind of what you see now, with the exception we'll put in that screening wall. Option A is 3 lanes. It's taking out the median and shoving the roadway as far, as close to the industrial buildings as we can get it. So it gives us a very wide buffer, green area to do all sorts of things. We'll go into detail on that in that green buffer. Option B is 4 lane. It's a kind of a hybrid of option A. We're adding an additional lane there, but we're still shoving the road as far as we can to the south. We just had an elected official show up, Dr. Daniel, and if you'll stand up, she's our county commissioner in this area, Teresa Daniel. Thank you so much, ma'am. And also one of our council members, Mr. Greg Noche. There he is, right there. We not only got a great turnout from the neighborhood, but we have a great turnout from our council and elected officials. Very, very impressive. They care about this neighborhood and these projects. 4 lane, undivided with amenities. So very similar to option A, but adding an additional lane, shoving it as close to the industrial uses on the south side of Skyline Boulevard. Because we are adding that additional lane, it reduces that green buffer area by about 12 feet. And we'll go into exact dimensions on that. Option C is kind of a hybrid of the existing option. It's basically, again, shoving that roadway to the south as much as we can, but it does add a median between 2 lanes in each direction. So it's more like a conventional roadway, almost like what we see with that option B on Town East Boulevard, with 2 lanes in each direction, a narrow median, not the big 60-foot wide median we currently have, and again, a buffer between the homes and the roadway, but again, it's reducing it even further in that case. So we'll go into that. Now, let's talk about traffic volumes for just a second. We did a traffic impact analysis for Town East Boulevard. We have done one for Skyline Boulevard as well. Right now, traffic volumes are very low on Skyline. We only get, our current traffic volumes are 4,844 vehicles, roughly, say, slightly under 5,000 vehicles a day. Remember our rule of thumb, 1 lane of traffic will carry up to 6,000 vehicles a day. Right now, we've got 4 lanes of traffic, so potentially we could carry somewhere in the neighborhood of 20,000 to 24,000 vehicles on Skyline. We've got 5,000 vehicles right now. We have done projections, and because of the the property near Peachtree, that floodplain area, and the area that's outside the floodplain where they've talked about building a big medical facility there. We've calculated those numbers, calculated in numbers for the building that's under construction on Skyline and Peachtree. It's another close to 500,000 square foot industrial building that's just breaking ground right now. And also putting full employment and bringing back that AT&T building, putting 1,200 employees in that building. Because of all that land that's undeveloped or underutilized right now, it almost doubles our future traffic count. So we're projecting in 2040 the traffic count jumping from just under 5,000 to 8,300 vehicles. But still a very manageable number of vehicles. And that's with everything in the area built out and no vacant land remaining. So kind of remember those. Speeds, what we're seeing on Skyline, we talked, it's kind of a straight road. It's relatively flat except for the potholes here and there. But it's kind of a racetrack. And as you can imagine, it's currently signed for 40-mile-per-hour limit. What we're finding is our 85th percentile, 85% of the people are driving at real close to 40 or over. On the town east side of it, our average 85th percentile speed is 43 miles per hour. So you can see these straight runway roads, lots of lanes, lots of median and space where they don't feel confined and don't have to really watch much. People are using this as a racetrack right now. So we have an enforcement problem. We get lots of complaints from the citizens out there about speeding, and you see the radar trailer and the police out there trying to get these people to slow down frequently. One way to kind of bring those speeds down is, again, narrow the number of lanes, kind of restrict things, put it all together, get rid of a median, things of that nature. We think will bring speeds down. You mentioned the screening wall. We also mentioned that it will have a heavy-duty industrial type pavement thickness, just like the Town East Boulevard project. We don't want to be back in 25, 30 years rebuilding this road because the roadway broke down again. So that's common to all four options. We have a very wide right-of-way, 124 foot, as I mentioned. We have low traffic volumes. Again, this is a lot like Town East. We have that mixed use, industrial, heavy uses on the south side. On the north side of the roadway, we have the residential use. So kind of an incompatible land use. We want to separate those as much as possible. Okay. This is actually in the survey is lettered option D, but it's basically the option to rebuild it more or less as you see it now. The disadvantages, let's go through pros and cons. These are all going to be on your survey as well. Traffic closer to homes. That comes with noise. It comes with vibration levels for those homes adjacent to the roadway. It doesn't give us also the area green space to develop trails and things of that nature. It puts all that green space in this very wide median where it's very hard for the people that live adjacent to it to utilize. So, you don't really want a trail going down the median of a roadway. You have to cross a bunch of traffic to even get to that trail. So it really doesn't make it a very useful green space if we put all that land in the median as you currently see out there. It's not going to give us room to do really any amenities next to the residential part. And again, as we mentioned, this is probably going to continue the high speeds that we're currently experiencing on the roadway. However, if you don't want any change, you're just trying to move traffic and you're trying to move it as quickly as possible, this is probably the option that you want to implement. So it's kind of the no change option. You've seen, this is on one of the screens over here on my left, your right. You can see that's the one closest to me that has the big, wide median over there. I'm going to kind of break it down. This is what it looks like currently. This was basically what we'd rebuild it. And we would build that screening wall, as we mentioned, between the alley that's behind the homes out there and the new pavement. I'm going to go on to option A. Option A is kind of the most radical change from what we currently see. This is 3 lanes shoving the roadway as far to the south next to the industrial homes as possible. It doesn't have a median. So what we're going to do, if you look at the long linear ones for the option A, what you'll see is we have a continuous left turn lane in the middle, through traffic lanes on either side of that, 1 in each direction. We would build auxiliary right turn lanes at the heavy movements into industrial properties and into the major streets that feed into the residential area. So you'd be able to get off the roadway, not block a through lane if you're making a heavy right turn into one of those streets or entrances into the industrial area. So we think it's a very efficient design. We think there's plenty of lanes there to carry the traffic both today and what we're anticipating in the future in 2040. And it gives us a largest separation between the travel lanes and the homes. It increases that buffer size between the alley right-of-way line and the pavement up to 77.5 feet. That's a lot of pavement, or a lot of green area. We can do a lot in that green area. It actually lends itself to the building almost of a linear park, where we can put a winding trail through there, lots of trees and landscaping, and potentially even some park furniture like benches and things of that nature in that area, because there's plenty of separation. You're not going to endanger anybody, especially children that might be using those type of amenities. So this is the option that gives the maximum green space between the homes and the pavement, maximum room for amenities, lower speeds, as we mentioned, as we kind of push traffic together, we expect lower speeds. It also has the lowest cost. Disadvantages is it has fewer lanes. If you're all about moving traffic and you don't want the least amount of congestion, this might have slightly more congestion than any of the other options. I'm going to click away. This is kind of a cross section or a plan view of that. Again, that's on these boards over here. Zooming into the cross section, you can see it gives the old roadway is kind of in a dashed line on your left there. You can see we're pushing the new roadway right almost up to 10 foot from the south right-of-way line. That gives us that gigantic buffer, lots of room for trees, trails, and other amenities. Okay, option B, kind of a little bit different, a little bit twist on option A, adds another lane. Remember, 3 lanes option A. This goes to 4 lanes, but they're 2 through lanes. And so because we have 2 through lanes, we would not build those right turn bays into the major streets and drive entrances into the industrial area. You'd have 1 lane in each direction. Of course, we would flare it at the major intersections, add additional lanes at Town East and Peachtree ends. This has many of the advantages of option A. It still pushes traffic away from the homes, not quite as much. Instead of a 77.5 foot buffer, it drops it down to 65.5. So roughly you lose 12 foot of that buffer. May not seem like much, but you have less green space, less opportunity to use it as a linear park. Still gives us room for that trail and trees, though. Option B will reduce noise vibration to the adjacent residential area, but of course not as much as option A. And because we're adding that extra lane of traffic, it costs a little bit more. It is a disadvantage. You will have higher speeds as a disadvantage, and traffic moves a little bit closer, that 12 foot closer to the homes as a disadvantage. All these will be on that survey, by the way, and available on our website. This is the cross section available over here. Again, this is very similar to option A, except we add, you see there's 4 vehicles there, 4 lanes of traffic, 2 in each direction. Slightly smaller buffer. Okay, option C is our kind of a hybrid with the current option. Right now, remember, we got this big wide 66 or 60 foot wide median. This is keeping the median, but it's still taking the roadway, shoving it as far to the south as we can. Because we're adding that green space in the median, our buffer gets smaller still than either option A or B. but it's giving 2 lanes, kind of like we have now on either side of a median, but the median would only be 13, 14 foot wide. So it's going from 60 foot wide to our normal, what you see like on Town East Boulevard, which is a 13 foot wide grassed area. If you count the curbs, it's 14 foot wide. This drops our buffer down to 51.5 feet. So option A, 77.5. We go to 65.5 on option B. This drops it even further to 51.5 foot buffer. There is still room. It still gives a lot of grass area. Still gives us room for that winding trail, some planting of trees. Option C has some reduction of noise and vibration to the residential neighborhood, but again, not quite as much as option A or B. So really, they're all kind of good options, depending on what you want to do out there. The last 3 options all increase the buffer between the residential and the roadway. It's just the matter of degree of the buffer out there. Again, with this option, just kind of like what we have now, since you have that median, we expect speeds to be pushing 40 miles per hour, maybe more than that, like we're currently experiencing. So it's not designed to slow down traffic. That's a disadvantage. And of course, this is the highest cost option out of any of them. And this is kind of that cross section. By the way, all these cross sections and displays that you're seeing here tonight are available in PDF on our website as well. So send your neighbors to those. We're going to start our public input process. We have 4 options, but they're all very similar and have pros and cons. I kind of ran through them pretty quickly. But we'd like to have people up here, kind of the same process as before. Corey, if you could help me with this. We would like you to state your name and address. Just for the record, you're being filmed. And speak clearly into the mic if you can, and we'll try and answer any questions you have and certainly record your opinions. Try and keep your comments on the Skyline Road project as much as possible, and what we're trying to do, and express your opinion on which of the options are important to you, and we'll try and get to all of you if we can. Go ahead, ma'am.
I'm Shelley Kubasumi, 2907 Potomac. I just have a couple of questions. First of all, when you're making that trail, right now it's a trail to nowhere. Are you going to hook that trail up with the Town East and then also make some type of walkway that hooks to the park and the parkway so that it becomes a trail that you can, I'm a walker and I don't like to just stop and have to turn around. I would prefer it be continuous. Are you planning on doing that?
Yes, we are, ma'am.
Okay.
The city actually has a master trail plan that's on the Park Department website. All these things, we're kind of building it bits and pieces, but it's part of a master plan. As we talked about on the Town East Boulevard one, that one option that we presented would build a trail all the way down to Forney, and then along that Forney Park, it would connect into the parking lot there, and that eventually feeds into the trails, that are along South Parkway and things of that nature. Also to the south on Town East Boulevard, we're reconstructing that right now. Once the roadway project's done, we're actually going to bid another project. We've got actually a state grant to build a trail on that segment of Town East, 12 foot wide, all the way from Skyline down to Military. And there's actually a 12-foot trail under construction right now as we speak on Military Parkway from Sam Houston Road all the way to LBJ. And our county friends are partnering with us to take a trail from LBJ all the way into our downtown area. So we're going to have some massive trail, and fortunately, most of these trails are being built with grants. The one on Military Parkway that's under construction is a grant funded. I think it's an 80-20 split on that. Only 20% of the money is city money. 80% is state and federal money. The section that the county is partnering with us that's under design from LBJ Freeway into the downtown area, that's a 50-50 split with Dallas County. They've been very generous in helping us with that as well. And the Town East one that we'll bid after the project is, again, another grant. So we're trying to build connectivity and trails so you can get all over the city eventually on a trail system, ma'am.
Speaking of connectivity, there is a bridge down here that's been out for over a year. Could we connect?
It is under design. Matter of fact, we had a meeting yesterday on CIP.
And how long till it's under construction?
We think about 3 months or so. We're nearing, we got 60% plans. We're trying to expedite that bridge.
And may we hold you to that? After a year?
You've got my
gone?
card.
Okay.
Our Director of Parks and Recreation gets calls on that all the time, and she has not let me forget it.
Okay.
And she's doing her job, and we're pushing the consultant as much as we can to get that one under construction. I'm a walker too. I'm a Boy Scout guy, and I love walking, so I feel your pain, and we want to make that connectivity. We want to get that bridge back.
I have one other question
Yes,
very
ma'am.
quickly. When you build walls, the walls, which I think is a great idea, but it tends to attract graffiti. Do you have a program that makes sure that that's taken care of in case that happens? I mean, I hope it doesn't, but I'm just, kids will be kids.
Our street department and our parks department, they react to graffiti as soon as they are notified of it, especially if it's like gang-related type stuff. These walls, what we find is the graffiti artists, they like a flat palette, okay? So brick screening walls, they actually like to hit more than these concrete ones that we're building because they have a lot of texture to it. The patterns with the bricks and the stones, it's very lumpy, so to speak, and it doesn't make a good canvas for the graffiti artists. So the walls that we've actually erected so far, we've had 0 graffiti on those walls so far. So we do take that into account when we design these things. We try and find a rock or a stone pattern or a brick pattern that has the maximum amount of relief so that the graffiti artists it's unattractive to them and they move on to something else that's flatter that will accommodate their art. Okay?
Thank you.
Charlie Baker, 1713 Huntington, 75149. And I was just curious about the cost of the median. What's the yearly cost of maintaining that? That's going to be a yearly cost, right?
Medians have obviously a cost. Anything that's grass has to be mowed. Something this wide has got to be mowed. The amount of grass really doesn't change that much because we're just adding that 1 lane on the 4-lane options, which would be option B and C, or option D, which is the current thing. So the mowing's not going to change a lot. I don't handle the mowing contracts, but there obviously is a cost of mowing any grass that's out there. It goes, really the big thing with the extra wide buffer area on the 3-lane option, option A, there's a little bit more grass out there, roughly 12 foot versus its current configuration or any of the other options B or C. So it does add a little bit, probably not more than an acre, I don't think.
It just seemed like to me that instead of grass, concrete would be so much better because we could have a turn lane there in the center with 2 lanes on either side, getting us going and coming and going where we're needing to be, rather than adding something that has to be maintained.
Concrete's got to be maintained too, sir.
Other than pouring it? I mean, you're pouring 13-inch concrete, you said. So
Right.
what are we going to maintenance it then? We're going to pressure wash it or what?
I do have to stripe it and things like that, put buttons down, and
That's
so
kind of
there
normal
is a
maintenance
cost.
I mean, we're talking about when you put greenery there, that's a weekly maintenance. It'll get
Sure,
mowed more
it
than the
does.
stuff behind my house does.
Yes, I understand,
So,
sir.
you know, that's what I'm-
There's certainly a maintenance cost associated.
Right.
Totally understood.
So there is an ongoing expense there.
Sure,
that adds to
absolutely.
the city budget, or,
No question, sir.
okay.
I'm Greg Williams, 2426 South Parkway. Lived here 32 years, watched my house go up, and the whole so much of the whole neighborhood. I don't use Skyline very often. I just don't travel that way a whole lot. But over the years, I certainly have, and it's the traffic it seems minimal. I know
Yes.
people that live around that area are using it certainly more often than I do. But to put the expense or the money into such a, I would consider it a minimally used road, not so much traffic like Town East that really requires some maintenance like this. It seems like there's so many other areas in Mesquite that could use this repairs, maintenance, rather than Skyline. I don't know.
No comment.
I mean, it just seems like there are so many other areas in Mesquite. I mean, that instead of one big project like this, there are areas all around that could use that kind of funding, and maybe be a little more common with some maintenance on it, perhaps. But to reconstruct it so much, I'm just wondering, could the money be utilized elsewhere a little more effective?
I understand your comment. I understand your comment. Yes, sir.
How you doing? I'm Gary Hudson, live over at 3000 Falls Church Lane.
Okay.
Kind of glad I'm talking after him. 'Cause no, I got a couple of comments. I want to thank y'all. This has been very informative, especially to me. I had a whole list of questions, and a lot of them got answered.
Great.
I do have a couple of questions. I haven't seen anything on, the street lights that are on either project. Are those going back with the new project, or?
Definitely. Our intention is to replant trees and to re-erect streetlights. We're actually upgrading the look of the streetlights. Most of our new projects come back with it's kind of a powder-coated square pole with what we call box lights on top. We've been putting those in on all our new projects, and it's our intention to do that with Town East and Skyline. Now, Skyline, we'd have to look at it, because if we put that trail, if we chose one of the options with a trail, either A, B, or C, we'd have to probably have lighting along the trail as well as the roadway. So we'd have to kind of have a hybrid, but we certainly would come back with lighting, sir.
So you're looking at pedestrian lights too?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If we put if we have that much buffer
Right.
and a trail that meanders through there, it would be wise to add lighting along that as well.
Okay. I did not see a timeline for Skyline.
Let me talk about timeline. Some funding has been identified. There's actually kind of a tax increment finance district that's kind of been put over that area. We're allocating money out of that district for the reconstruction of this roadway. And it looks like we're getting an infusion of money in 2019. It's a year away. We would start design in 2019 with that first infusion of money. In 2020, we think we could probably bid the project towards the end of that and go to construction in 2021. So it's about a year and a half behind the Town East Boulevard project. Because it's the same neighborhood as well, we would want to finish the Town East Boulevard project before we launched on the Skyline, so people had a way to get out of the neighborhood, in and out of the neighborhood. We would not want both projects overlapping or being pursued simultaneously. So we would have to finish Town East before we started the Skyline. So we're talking about a year and a half behind the Skyline schedule, sir.
Okay. And just one more quick comment.
Yes, sir.
I really appreciate the A through C options, due to the fact that for us residents that are leaving, come out right now, we have to be very careful, because we get a lot of wrong way drivers. And the way
yeah.
way those, the screening bushes are now, our visibility is real limited.
Real limited.
Yeah.
So pushing the roadway away from you
Yes.
would help a
Yeah,
lot with that.
We appreciate that.
Got that.
All right, thank you.
Very good, sir.
Afternoon. My name's James Blackshear. I live at 2200 Camp David. Been there since '91. Was on Spiceberry prior to that. I just had a couple of general questions. It has to do with the impact, traffic impact. We're discussing Skyline. I'm not sure how that happens. Is it a complete shutdown? Is it a partial shutdown when you do Skyline? And based on the answer to that, you're going to have traffic backing up on Town East regardless of whether it's new or not, and on South Parkway. And earlier, when we were talking about Town East, you said, when the lady asked about the park, well, there's not a lot of traffic on Forney. There will be a lot of traffic on Forney once you begin this work. So I think it would be good to maybe go back, reevaluate just a little bit, even though this is not a part of your project and it's more the bond package stuff. Forney Road, South Parkway, they're all going to be, I'm going to say, negatively impacted to a certain degree from traffic flow. As people back up on Town East trying to get to their home, they're not going to be able to use Skyline, and that's including the 18-wheelers. What are they going to do, and how are they going to come in? And are there any discussions that you guys have with the corporations and businesses that are almost completely surrounding us as to how those 18-wheelers are going to get in during this time? Or is it just, as you said earlier, well, you know, they've got the roads too? Because if you went ahead right now and just closed down South Parkway and made it a 3-lane road too, we would be completely enclosed by 18-wheelers. Completely. So people have frustration in this room. We love the progress. We like the fact that you're here and you're listening, but there will be more frustration when this process begins. And again, I don't know if Skyline will be completely closed, probably not.
No.
But that's still going to impact traffic both directions coming from Town East, from Peachtree, if Skyline's going to be impacted. And then they're going to start funneling through South Parkway and Forney Road and going through the neighborhoods, and that includes 18-wheelers too. And that's why South Parkway is like the Santa Fe Trail right now.
It's in pretty bad shape.
It's in horrendous shape. I hate to even get out on it and drive. It's so bad. If you come off a Gross Road and you go down to Peachtree and take a ride on South Parkway, you're taking your life in your hand almost. You've got to get in the middle lane for about 100 yards before you get there, and then you can turn because it's split and it's sinking. And it's all these 18-wheelers that have completely enclosed us. So anyway, I was curious about the construction of Skyline. If it happens all at once, evidently it doesn't. But I think you ought to reconsider the impact that you're having on the neighborhood, although all this is good, and some caveats about these 18-wheelers, and do you discuss with them ingress and egress and how they get in and out, or is it just ad hoc and they can do what they want? Thank you.
We certainly can add construction signage during the course of construction that clearly marks the entrances into the residential area, no trucks allowed. I mean, we can do that.
Well, they're already.
And then it's an enforcement issue, but we can put the signs up. Now, as I mentioned, Skyline doesn't actually have a tremendous amount of traffic on it today. It's around 4,200, I think I said 4,200 vehicles per day. So it's relatively light. I have residential streets. I bet you South Parkway has that same amount of traffic, but it's only got 2 lanes, okay? Our intention is we would put traffic on one side of the roadway. We may have to add asphalt in places to widen it out for turn movements and things of that nature, but we'd put all the traffic probably closest to the commercial property, the industrial property on the south, build a section kind of north, and we'd have to kind of phase the project and figure out what we're going to, well, thinking about, we'd have to probably put the traffic on the north side, build the south, and then flop traffic onto the new pavement and tear out the old pavement. So we would phase it so that there would be continuous access for all those businesses. Skyline would never be shut down, just like we're doing on Town East Boulevard to the south of Skyline right now. We're keeping it open. But there is phasing. There's certainly inconvenience, sir. There's no construction project ever done that doesn't inconvenience somebody. But we would do whatever we could to mitigate the impacts to the neighborhood. Like you said, it's not to our interest to have South Parkway get any worse than it currently is, nor the streets within the neighborhood. So we would take proactive steps to mitigate and do what we could to prevent that from occurring. Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name's David Moskowitz. I live at 3144 Wichita Drive. We've been there 30 years. I'm in a unique situation. I live on Skyline. I work on Skyline. I work down in the warehouses, the big white buildings down there that everybody talks about. So I'm very well aware of traffic. Where we live, when the trailers come down, our headboard bounces, the frames on the wall, they all shake, and we hear every truck. So I'm very encouraged about the City of Mesquite being so proactive and looking out. Is it 40 years? Was that what your plan is, or 2040?
2040 is what we're projecting. Basically, we look at all the traffic would be, all the land would be built out at 2040, and what would that traffic volume be at that point?
There's been some great comments, both pro and con. I want to tell you, I am encouraged and excited to see this happen. I think our property values will go up, our condition of life will be better. I know I'll sleep a hell of a lot better than I do right now. So I just wanted to commend you all on the progress. All of these plans are admirable. I drive that 4 times a day, and I know exactly what the traffic is, and we're going to be in great shape. We're going to be in better shape than we were with either of these programs. Thank you all very much.
Great. Thank you, sir.
My name is Noé Villarreal. I'm at 3501 Dublin Trail. I would like to put in my proposal. Have you thought of 5 lanes?
That's not one of the options we've looked at, no, sir.
If you put a 3rd lane on the side of the neighborhood so where they can make a right turn, it would be a lot safer for us to get in blind spots and so on and so forth. Or at the very minimum, consider right turn acceleration lanes to consider the safety of our neighborhoods, residential people, because those are the ones you're serving. And the last thing I would like is to have a 4-lane, 2-direction road with blind sides and us trying to go across when the traffic volume increases. If you consider 3 lanes going on Town East towards 80, we're in a hurry to get into work because we're running late. We're not in a hurry to getting back in. If you're in Skyline, obviously we have those blind spots. Again, considering making a right turn, having that extra lane would be a great safety factor consideration into this. Again, think about the neighborhood. It's impacting us, and that 3rd lane would be well worth saving at least 1 life.
If you look at option A, the long strip there, it's the one down below the top, kind of the second from the top. We do have, on that 3-lane option, we have right turn lanes to get into both the major streets into the neighborhood as well as into the industrial buildings. So it does help with that flow of traffic tremendously. And that suggestion that you just have, we're implementing it on that particular option, option A.
Thank you, sir.
You bet. Thank you.
Yes, I'm Kathy Colgrove, and I live at 2402 Monticello Drive. So our house is the back house. That's that alley.
So you're right up against
right
it.
up to Skyline. Sometimes I can't tell if it's a huge thunderstorm or just another truck coming by, because like the gentleman says, the windows shake, everything shakes when some of those 18-wheelers go by. But I'm really concerned about the cut-through traffic when this happens, because we frequently are in the neighborhood over us of Gus Thomason and Oates, and those streets are not as wide as ours are, which we're fortunate in that.
Mm-hmm.
But they're going 40 miles an hour down those little bitty streets with cars on both sides, and there's barely one pathway getting through. Have you considered that, at least when this kind of thing, and you're considering that you're going to have all this cut through, that you put some big speed bumps, not the high ones, but the wide ones, that forces people to slow down? We have kids all over the neighborhood, and I'm surprised that we haven't had several kids in that neighborhood run over, because they're there, and you go by and you're like, watch it, there's a kid over there.
We've not considered speed bumps as a temporary measure on roadways because of construction projects. Typically, we do put speed bumps in alleys because speeds are low. The speed limit in an alley is 15 miles per hour. However, speed bumps in residential or larger streets, generally as a rule, we don't put those in, and the reason for that is liability, because if people hit those at speed, particularly things like motorcycles or bicycles, people often take spills, get injured, and there's been even deaths. And cities have lost lawsuits related to speed bumps and people actually instead of being a safety feature, it actually has caused injuries on many occasions.
Well, Plano, I know, has them across 6-lane roads, 3 and 4 lanes each side. And they have the wide 2-foot wide ones. They're not the really high ones. But
we can certainly revisit that and see if that's an option, especially on a temporary measure for traffic control during a project. Thank you. Great suggestion.
Chris Groven, 1412 Hermitage Street, it's right down the street. A couple questions. First of all, thank you for coming out. I really like these proposals. I think it's long overdue, and I definitely want to thank you guys for involving us in this.
We enjoy it, actually.
So, second question is, with regard to the traffic on South Parkway and Civil, you start construction on Skyline, you're going to have these 18-wheelers cut through the neighborhood. They're doing it right now. Civil's right here. They're doing it right now. Because if you go on Civil and they're exiting out, they're going straight across. They're not making a turn or anything, going straight across. So take that.
We can look into that.
Look into that. And then right behind the new warehouses that they're building, there's an actual street.
There's a what?
There's an actual street behind those warehouses that they're building. And it pulled out into Peachtree. I'm looking at the map right now. So the only way that road right there is cut off through the big property on the corner. But there's the actual street right there. I'll show you.
Okay.
I'm looking at it
Get
right
with me right after this, and we
Yeah,
can
that's fine.
discuss that.
But there's these warehouses that they built actually created a mini street.
Right, there is circulation drives within that complex of 4 buildings over there. The third one's underway right now.
What I'm proposing, and you can disregard this, but is there a way to go on the property on the corner to build a road around it, to have the 18-wheelers go around it to get to where they need to, instead of coming up on Skyline?
Let's look into that.
Okay.
I know the big building that's vacant on the corner of Town East and Skyline. At one point, they were marketing that as a potential data center.
Right.
Data centers, they have security, like bank-like security because of all the information in there. And so getting traffic through a facility like that, if it did develop as a data center, is unlikely. But
Well, I mean, the access into that center is fine. They have adequate parking, but there's a lot of greenage behind it, and it's right
Yes.
across that railroad track.
right, it's right next to the railroad track.
So-
Absolutely.
Just an option.
Interesting suggestion, sir. We'll definitely look at it.
Ron Heron, live at 2909 Yorktown, been there since 1985. Matthew, do you intend to resurface Skyline while you're building Town East? and resurface that road with asphalt or something to smooth it out, and because we're going to have to wait 2 years, it looks like.
We can look at doing some improvements, again, trying to.
Not what you're doing right now, because that's not worth a damn. Okay? I could put down asphalt better than what these guys are doing, okay? And I don't even know how to do it.
We'll definitely take that into account, sir.
Yeah, okay. And the other thing, we talk about traffic on Skyline. Is there a long-range plan to extend that down there to the creek, to the bridge to nowhere? And if you're intending to build apartments down there, this bunch is going to vote everybody out of office.
Right now, it's basically zone medical and office, that type of use. We haven't had a site plan. We've seen some concept plans, and matter of fact, they approached council about a month or two ago, asking for basically an extension of the current development agreement that we have as a city with that developer. Project's still alive. It kind of went defunct during the crash, but it seems to have some wind in its sails right now and seems to be new life being breathed into it. The plan that we've seen kind of conceptually looks pretty good. I believe it does include a road, basically extension of Peachtree. I honestly can't remember, but if you leave me your name or number, we can look up and see what that concept plan has and get that information to you, sir.
I thank you for your patience.
No apartments. There's no. Yeah, it's all medical. It's no apartments. Yes, ma'am.
Elizabeth Anderson, 2514 Monticello, been there since 77.
Wow.
Behind my property backs up the alley, and the alley between Springbrook and Sybil is very narrow. And any plans to widen that alley in that part so I don't back into that screening wall when I get out of my driveway?
Well, probably, we've had that kind of same issue where people backing out of their drives, when we install a screening wall, it makes it very difficult. If we go with one of the wider buffer, which is basically option A, B, or C, we can certainly slide that screening wall a little bit further out than what it is now, so that your rear bumper doesn't bang into it as you back out of your drive. We've had that issue. It is a design issue. If we chose any of the buffer options, which are 3 of the 4 options, we'd have the room to do that.
Yeah, I need a wider alley.
Okay.
If you're going to have a screening wall. Thank you. Thank you
You
for the
bet,
work
ma'am.
you've done.
Thanks for attending.
Good evening, sir. My name is Benny Zentek. I live at 3009 Yorktown Road. I have a question. I know you touched on the trails and stuff. Are we going to be inundated with these bicycles that they have around Dallas that they have such a problem with?
Cliff, you might want to address, I know we've seen what's going on in other cities.
Right.
And I think the city management staff is actually taking steps to make sure that doesn't occur here. They're already had some discussions with them.
Okay. Thanks, sir.
I have noticed them in my neighborhood that they're starting to show up. They're migrating from Dallas, but
Right.
we are trying to be proactive before they become a blight in the city to take care of that.
I'm Mrs. Zentek. I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any company or business specific that you're trying to cater to that's going to come here that is causing all this? Or is it just
Causing all what?
all these upgrades?
No, the roads are just in bad shape, ma'am.
All
And
right.
certainly it will help attract business and retain business, but there's no these roadway improvements are not tied to any business development agreement or anything like that.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mark Moss, 2308 Monticello Drive. I've been here 12 years. So I like all those plans, but I went on record that I said this. Only on Sybil is there a right turn lane into the neighborhood. And I feel like whatever the design is, all of those need to have a right turn lane. I like the 3-lane option because it pushes it farther away. I really like that a lot, but not without those turn lanes on Springbrook, and all those roads need that.
We could certainly look at that. Again, it'd be fairly easy to implement, very easy to implement, sir.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody for all your hard work. Appreciate it.
No problem. That's our job, sir.
My name is Leo Cantu, 1313 Farley Drive. Since it's near the end, if I could ask, the southern part between Military and Skyline, will that be completed before the northern part is commenced?
Absolutely. Again, we don't want to have any projects overlap each other. It's just a big mess and a headache for us. So we certainly want to finish the section that's currently under construction south of Skyline all the way to Military before we kick off construction on the northern half. And I don't think there'll be any problem achieving that either.
Okay. Any idea how long that will take for the southern part to be finished?
Corey, what's our schedule on that? I think September, November of this year. So that'd be about the time we're bidding the new section that we're discussing here. So we should be finished completely with the southern section, with the exception of the trail. We are going to be bidding the 12-foot trail that's going to be on the, let me get this right, east side of the roadway. That grant project we mentioned, that's being built separately from the actual roadway. So we'll kick that one off, but that, again, it's a trail. It's not going to impact the traffic.
Okay. And whichever option is decided for either of these two that you presented, how will it ultimately be decided? By the votes of the people here or some other way?
That's council. Ultimately, city council decides what option is going to be pursued and give instruction to staff. And so it's up to them to kind of take the information they've gathered tonight, the information we'll gather from the surveys, we'll present them with that information, statistical breakout of that and the various comments that we collect. And it's up to them to weigh those comments and deliberate and come to a decision. So I don't think there's any formula other than the democratic process that the city council will pursue.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Before we end tonight, I just want to ask again for a round of applause for Matt Holzaffel and the entire engineering team. Thank you for all your effort tonight. This is several months' worth of effort to try to discuss options and working with our consultants. So there was a lot of thought put into this and a lot put into the presentation tonight. We will stick around as long as you need us to or until the school kicks us out. Then we can go talk in the parking lot. But again, we're here to answer your questions. Please do not leave without an unanswered question. We'll try to keep it to the projects at hand. If there's something we can discuss later, we'll pass out our business cards. We're glad to talk about all of the great things going on in the city. I want to thank our city council for their support tonight. Thank you for being here. And again, please fill out your survey before you leave, or mail it in, or go online. Spread the word to your neighbors. We need input, and the council needs to hear from the citizens before the decision's made. Again, thank you for being here tonight.